It's May 23rd, 2021, and I would say it's 22 years since Owen Hart passed away. And, saying someone passed away, it doesn't really do justice to the tragedy that befell Owen Hart, his family, his fans, the world of professional wrestling. Owen Hart, I happened to see him perform live at the King of the Ring, 1994. Yes, I was there. And I didn't have a great seat, but I was still in the audience. And seeing Owen Hart win 3 matches that night was great. It was great. And getting a victory over Razor Ramon, who was one of the top guys in the WWF, and that kind of gave Owen a bit more credibility to kind of resume his feud with Bret Hart, his brother, that took a break for the Diesel match that night. And with the interesting swerve of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who accompanied Bret, kind of turning pseudo heel by getting Bret disqualified to retain the title, but only because the Anvil wanted Owen Hart, his other brother-in-law, to still have matches with Bret. Didn't want Diesel to get the title away from Bret. So very interesting night. Being there live, I didn't have a great seat, but I think I was spared the commentary that we've all jostled and joked about from Artie Lang. Previous Owen Hart memories. I never met Owen Hart. One of the wrestlers that I didn't get to meet. Would have liked to have met him. But Owen Hart, I first started hearing about the guy in 1987. 86, 87, but really 87. It was 87. Rookie of the Year, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Yes, kayfabe awards, okay, but you started seeing this guy doing moves like the octopus, like kind of the abdominal stretch, but he's putting his leg over the guy's head. And you're just hearing about this high-flying guy. And then about a year and a half later, he was over in the World Wrestling Federation, but they put him under a mask, and oddly enough, the Blue Blazer character was first born in the WWF, even had a WrestleMania match some people forget about, but others don't. I believe it was WrestleMania 5, and it was a quick match. It was like a 5.5-minute match, from my memory, against Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. And that's about the time you started, as a fan, and started realizing, okay, they're not going to do much. Here's to Owen. They're not going to do much with this Blue Blazer character if he's losing in 5.5 minutes to anybody at WrestleMania. Granted, it was Mr. Perfect. But back then, there was kind of a, if you were Dino Bravo and Magnificent Morocco going 50-50 on pay-per-views, that was one thing. But if you were Owen Hart as the Blue Blazer losing to Mr. Perfect at WrestleMania, you kind of know that this guy is not going to get pushed very big. Moving forth, another year later, Owen Hart or Blue Blazer kind of fizzled, which was it was good that they gave him that character at that time, because all those losses didn't besmirch the Owen Hart, like the clean Owen Hart. And we saw Owen Hart wrestle in WCW in the kind of early summer of 1990. I want to say May, June, July, and just wrestled a couple of matches on TV, maybe 3 or 4 on Saturday night. And, I think there was a tag team match where Owen Hart wrestled in a tag team match as well. But I think they didn't have him lose, and it looked like they might sign him, which would be pretty interesting, that they would have Owen Hart over there in WCW. Meanwhile, Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart and, Davey Boy Smith, and they were all pretty much still affiliated with WWF at the time. But Owen did not stick around WCW for whatever reason, and kind of, I would say it was maybe a mutual loss. I think that would have been really interesting, especially, WCW could have always used more star power, and having a Canadian, Hart in their company would have been good. But then we really get into kind of the golden years of Owen, and probably, look, the Japanese stuff, I know Owen wrestled a lot in Japan. I'm not an expert on that. I believe Owen did wrestle in Japan quite a bit, but I'm not an expert on that. But going back to WWF, they put them in this series of tag teams. I believe it was, what came first? I think High Energy came first with Coco. And once again, as a wrestling fan, you can kind of tell, even at a young age, like, what are they going to do with this guy? And if they start, no offense to Coco, but Coco was just such a undercard guy for such a long time at that point. Coco's biggest, I'm sorry this light is bothering me. There we go. And so Owen Hart, Owen Hart, in this tag team with Coco, you just felt for him, meaning both guys really, but I believe Coco was a little chubbier then, like Coco was getting kind of heavier, and the MC Hammer balloon pants and everything, it just wasn't feeling like they were really going to do much with Owen. And then I think Coco, I don't know if that's when Coco got into his behind-the-scenes fight with somebody, an executive, and Coco was gone, and I think they put him in with Jim the Anvil Neidhart in the New Foundation. And once again, the wrestling axiom, especially with WWF mid-90s, if you're in a tag team that's new, you're buried from the get-go. The new Blackjacks, the new Midnight Express, the new Rockers, and, the new Hart Foundation, or the New Foundation, I think they called them. It was okay, but I mean, once again, it's just that same pattern of Owen, the non-Jim Neidhart wrestler has to carry the team, and it wasn't really fair to Owen. And he's kind of just doing that for a while, and he's struggling. And then I guess it was coming off the heels of that interesting Survivor Series 93, where Jerry Lawler was supposed to have the payoff match at Survivor Series against Jerry Lawler and his Knights, the mask guys, that I think were Jeff Gaylord, Greg Valentine, and somebody else. And if you ever heard that Terry Funk, My Horse is Sick story, I guess Terry Funk was supposed to be there, but he didn't want to be. So it was, I believe, Valentine, Jeff Gaylord, and somebody else under masks. It's a hard word to say, by the way. Against Owen, Brett, and was it Bruce and Petey Hart? I mean, who was the fourth Hart? I can't remember. But basically, they had the match, and, the thing was, that's when they really started dropping this Owen is the, angry little brother gimmick, which was good. And we didn't really see it. I can't remember seeing that coming before Survivor Series. And it was kind of a thing where it made up nicely for the fact, believe it or not, people wanted to see Jerry Lawler in that match, and Shawn Michaels as the substitute was kind of a letdown, which seems so odd to think that way, that in 1993, Shawn Michaels would be seen as a letdown replacement for Jerry Lawler. But the reason was because that Jerry Lawler-Bret Hart feud had a lot of heat. So it doesn't always matter who the better in-ring performer is. You pretty much agree that Shawn Michaels at that age was a better in-ring performer than Jerry Lawler at his age in 93. But people wanted to see Lawler get his ass kicked. So he wasn't able to be there, and I don't know if that was a catalyst, and we know why Lawler wasn't able to be there, okay, because of, legal ramifications. But did that spawn, Owen to take us to that storyline of Owen turning heel? Can we thank Jerry Lawler's weird ways, or accusations, or allegations, perhaps? We could. Then we go into the whole Bret-Owen feud was really well done. That's the type of thing where, as a WWE fan of that era, WWF, it's hard to kind of negotiate the level of storylines they did, taking their time, going from Survivor Series to Royal Rumble, where the Hart brothers challenged, I believe it was the Quebecers, Jacques Rougeau and the other guy, and if that's POC now, I guess, or whatever, and Johnny Polo, I think, Raven was the manager. So, very interesting. Really well done storyline. I mean, that whole feud from Survivor Series 93 all the way a year later, and yes, the WrestleMania 10 match, probably, the greatest opening match at WrestleMania ever. And now that I nuked into there, let's say this, before that WrestleMania 10 opener match, when Owen cleanly pinned Bret, by my memory, on pay-per-views, opening matches were not a thing. I could be forgetting something, You know, maybe I'm trying to think of a WrestleMania 9 or some other big show from either company. At the time, it would be WCW or WWE and I guess you would have had the Super Clash 3 pay per view, AWA and Friends, but I can't remember, and you can comment if you like. Was there a match on pay per view that opened a pay per view in that era that was like a big match? And I don't think so. And I'm trying to think if even 6 or 7 years later, or whatever it was, 3 years later, Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio at that Halloween Havoc, was that an opening match or not? I can't remember, to be honest with you. But opening matches kind of became a thing, and it took a while for them to get there to be a thing. But you have to credit the prolificness of Owen pinning Brett. In my mind, my memory, I could be wrong, but I think that was the first time an opening match meant something as far as the quality of the match and exceeding expectations and really putting a high bar on the show. And the only thing really, in ring wise to match that WrestleMania 10 opener was the ladder match with Razor and Shawn. And perhaps Razor and Shawn felt the need, as Shawn's history of selfish behavior, as we've chronicled on the Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, another video. We know that Shawn was probably selfish and didn't want Brett and Owen to leave there thinking they had the best match, so Shawn had to go out of his way to have a great match, and they did, him and Razor. And that shot, the close of WrestleMania 10 with Owen just kind of staring a hole into Brett, and I beat you, Brett, I beat you. That's some great storytelling stuff. I know you did, Owen, but it wasn't for the title. I got my title from Yokozuna. So you had this whole thing, and that took us to the King of the Ring, which I went to. Now, here's a little known fact. Did you know that the King of the Ring 94 was the day after the O.J. Simpson race? Like the fucking race with the vehicle, the Dodge or whatever the fuck it was, the Ford Bronco. Did you know that? It was the day after Father's Day 1994, and O.J. Simpson stuff. And there's actually an ESPN doc, a 30 for 30 doc, or an ESPN doc of that particular day, June, whatever the hell, June 23rd maybe of 1994. I'm just going by memory. So I could be a little bit off on the date, or I could be dead on. June 23rd or June 22nd or June 24th was the OJ day, and a lot of other historical things happened in sports. Tiger Woods did something. There was a basketball game that happened, a championship. And that was the day of the OJ race. So Owen winning King of the Ring was the day after OJ. So it just puts things in perspective chronologically for those that are interested. Next we had, just the fucking Survivor Series 94 with the Bob Backlund, helping Bob Backlund win the title. Interestingly enough, and here's, probably you can watch a million Bret Hart shoot interviews and get more information. Was Owen ever considered to be WWF World Champion? Did he want to be? And it's hard to say. Like I said, I didn't know the guy, was not a friend of the guy, would have liked to have been. I just didn't ever get a chance to meet him or whatever, but reading his wife's book, Martha Hart's book, Broken Hearts, the Owen Hart story, something to that effect, and trying to get a balance of Owen from shoot interviews and people reminiscing, people in the business that knew him. It seemed like maybe Owen didn't really care to be world champion, didn't want to be world champion. He just did not, because at that time there was a remarkable thing where you had to do like the Regis and whoever show, Regis and Kathy Lee, or maybe Owen just didn't want to be in that position, and Brett did, and that worked out. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't. Owen, from all accounts, was a family man, liked to spend time with his family, and as WWF champion in that era, you couldn't spend as much time with your family as much as the other wrestlers. So, guys like Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Harley Race, guys who really enjoyed being world champion, whether it was for the touring NWA or the stationary WWF, meaning they didn't do anything outside the company, no offense, Owen just didn't want to do that, and that's fine. And so some people, a lot of times people sit there and say, oh, Owen Hart would have had a world title. I don't know. I think my prediction of Owen Hart's career, what could have, would have, should have been, I think that Chris Jericho made a great point that, Owen kind of didn't have a lot of guys to work with at his size, his skill level. But if he had been around, in 99, 2000, when Jericho, hate to say it, Benoit, Malenko especially, well, that'd be nice. Malenko versus fucking Owen would have been awesome. Eddie and Owen as a tag team that just turns on each other could have been awesome, could have been hilarious, could have been great matches. The two guys with a lot of personality, Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero, would have been sensational as a tag team and would have been even better opponents. Actually, I think I would have liked the Owen and Eddie tag team more than seeing them wrestle each other. Or just going back and forth, because as far as a guy who could have the charisma and about the same size and the mix of, Japanese, Mexican styles, Eddie Guerrero and Owen Hart, oh my God, the matches those guys could have had, we would still be talking about them. And the other member of that quartet, let's see, the Radicals, Malenko, Perry Saturn, could have been interesting with Owen. I don't see that as being more of a long-term program just because Perry, didn't seem to fit in for the long term with WWE, but who knows? Maybe a calming influence of Owen Hart, and they could have done stuff with Moppy. Who knows? Would have been interesting, but this was Jericho's thought, not mine, Chris Jericho. He thought that if Owen had lived, he would have had matches with all those guys, and himself, Jericho and Owen would have been nice. I think a title that possibly could have happened is if one of those guys, let's say Eddie or Benoit had won the SmackDown World Heavyweight Championship, like that big gold belt that Triple H had for a while. If one of those guys had that on SmackDown, say 2002, 2003, when some of the bigger names like Austin and Rock were gone, and sometimes Undertaker had injuries, and sometimes Kurt Angle had injuries, but there were times when, like, say, a Benoit or a Guerrero would have had that SmackDown big gold belt title. I could see Owen getting that for a while, kind of like when Christian got that title over Randy Orton, like kind of upper mid-card guy gets a world title for a while to spice things up. And Owen would have been highly credible. And just having the title for a month, Owen could have run with that because the Slammy Awards, just getting these ridiculous Slammy Awards for Best Bow Tie that I think he made up on his own. Owen could take something with no significance, very little value, like a Slammy Award that he invented, and make it mean something. I got 2 Slammies, Brett, and the King of the Ring, he can make that mean something. So imagine if they gave Owen a month with the WHC, the World Heavyweight Championship. A title, by the way, that I officially don't recognize, but in this scenario, I'm recognizing it. It's not the Bruno belt, but I could see Owen on SmackDown with that title for a month or two. Could he have held on? Meaning, had he had lived, could he have stayed around to wrestle guys like Daniel Bryan? I could see that being a one more match thing for Owen. Like if Owen had just retired or was on the cusp of retirement, a Daniel Bryan, Owen Hart feud would have been real nice. Or just like like similar to, Flair, Michaels at Mania, whatever, 27, I think in Orlando or something. I could see Daniel Bryan being the guy to, I'm sorry, I love you, to Owen Hart. I could see that. I could see an Owen Hart, Daniel Bryan, maybe after Daniel wins the world title, loses it, they do something, and something happens, and you got Daniel Bryan versus Owen Hart. Could I see CM Punk against Owen? Not particularly. I don't think that they would have good chemistry. I think Owen might call him a scumbag and a sleazeball. It might be funny. Owen in the ECW. Let's just go there. Why not? Could Owen have done something in the ECW, the WWE ECW? I think it would have been very interesting. I think they did some stuff with guys like Big Show and Big Daddy V. I think Owen in WWE ECW as a guy who put the Federation down and ridiculed it. So this would be about 2006. So Owen would be, 41, 42, 40? And I could see that. Owen as like the disgruntled veteran who is disgusted by ECW. I would love to have seen that, and that would have been great. what are you doing to my wrestling? You know, he could just be so upset. This is god awful. I can't believe this. You know, he's just disgusted with WWE ECW. And who would he wrestle there? Tommy Dreamer or guys like Balls Mahoney? Like just some gimmicky 5-minute matches with Balls Mahoney against Owen in WWE ECW. Would have been fun. How would have, I guess I already covered that, a retirement program with Daniel Bryan. What else? You know, this is all hypothetical fun. I mean, we're just having fun. And, you know, I try to do this in a different way. I just kind of coming up with this on the fly. But had Owen lived, what would he have done? Just fun. And now here's some more stuff about Owen Hart. People always say, well, Mike, you know, WWE Hall of Fame. I'm sick of having to listen to people talk about that, but I'll talk about it. I think the thing is, Martha Hart is totally opposed to it. And to be honest, as an Owen Hart fan, I think you have to respect the wishes of the wife. And watching the Dark Side of the Ring, you have to respect that that's his wife and that's who has control of that situation, if he goes into the Hall of Fame or not. Obviously, people say, oh, she's bitter. Well, she deserves to be bitter. I mean, and, you know, I think that they, on the Dark Side of the Ring, the Owen Hart and his kids, his kids and Martha Oge and the daughter, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, the daughter, they have the right to decide what happens with his legacy. That's it. So it's not for us to sit here and complain, or even for Brett to complain about it. And, you know, I've heard Brett say, well, Martha wants to erase my brother's memory. I don't see it that way. I see it as she doesn't want his memory to be dictated by the same company that, however you want to put it, was negligent. Whose negligence, in part, led to his death. Let's be honest. As far as the whole, how did Owen, you know, Owen died, blah, blah, blah. Some people say it's an accident. I'll say this: if it was an accident caused by negligence, my opinion. Okay, I just think it was negligence. Was it a setup? No, I don't think so. Was it an error? Was it a mistake? Was it a god-awful tragedy? Yes, yes, yes. And there's also a level of negligence in there. And I go by this, not so much by the Dark Side of the Ring episode about Owen's death and Owen's life, but more so about that audio, the 33-minute audio thing you can find on YouTube, Owen Hart post-audio documentary. If you haven't listened to that and you have an opinion on Owen Hart's life and death, well, your opinion's no longer valid because you haven't listened to that audio doc. If you really want to have an informed opinion about the death of Owen Hart, okay, I'm going to be brutal with you right now because I'm sick of people with opinions that have no merit, meaning you haven't done the fucking research, okay? Listen to the post-audio Owen Hart audio doc. Watch The Dark Side of the Ring, Owen Hart, and you have to read a book. You have to read Martha Hart's book. I believe it's titled Broken Hearts or Breaking Their Hearts, the Owen Hart, book by Martha Hart. It's the only one she's written. And if you read the book, yes, you have to sit there and read a book, and you have to watch the show, which is easy enough, and you have to listen to the audio doc. Once you've accomplished those 3 tasks, then you can consider yourself to have an opinion. Until that time, I don't want to hear your fucking opinion because it has no merit, okay? So what else? But that's here. This is why it's painful to talk about Owen Hart, because inevitably you want to, as a fan, as someone, the guys that knew him, which I didn't, I've said that, you want to be able to talk about this guy without dwelling on the negative. And the biggest thing that's negative is that he's dead. And so it's very hard to bring up the topic of Owen Hart without circling back to his painful death. And what I hate about his death, not only did he die, but he died in pain, okay? Which I despise the fact that this gentleman, who seemed to be a terribly nice family man, died in miserable physical pain. That pisses me off. And the fact that his wrestling brothers had to wrestle in this ring with a damaged side of the ring, And to be honest, if we had more integrity as wrestling fans, we would have stopped watching World Wrestling Federation that moment. Okay, that's the bottom line. If we had more integrity as human beings and as men, we would have stopped watching the WWE or the WWF the night that he died. That's the reality, you know. But we are not strong. We are weak. We are addicted to wrestling, and so we keep on watching it despite what happened. And that's the fucking hardcore truth, if you really want to get fucking down to it, which most people don't. You know, most people don't have the ability to tear into themselves and to investigate their spirit like I do. But I do, and I share that with you. Damn it. So, there you go. It's just very tough to talk about these things without getting riled up and angry and pissed off at Vince McMahon and the negligence and that fucking clip, that clip that shouldn't be holding any more than 60 pounds and not a human fucking being. It's a little bit hard not to get angry and pissed off about it. All right? I try to fucking end this on a positive note. Favorite Owen matches, I'd probably say that Raw. Oddly enough and ironically enough, this is always the Raw that's brought up as it was such a horrible goddamn Raw that they brought in Vince Russo to start writing the television programs. I thought it was a good Raw. It was from Europe or wherever the fuck, and it came down to Davey Boy Smith versus Owen Hart for the first ever European title, which Davey Boy won. I thought it was a great fucking match, and I thought that the Raw had this interesting look because it looked like an old-time wrestling ring. It was all smoky. I just like that fucking Raw, and I like that fucking match. That's my favorite Owen Hart match. Others might say, oh, WrestleMania 10. Okay, we got it. Owen winning the tag team title with Yokozuna over the fucking Smoking Guns. That match I kind of liked too, to be honest with you. It was a nice surprise that Owen brought out Yoko. Remember the summer or like the year where you had like Cornette managing Davey Boy Smith, Owen Hart, and Yoko as like a trinity of bad guys? I always thought that was pretty cool, and it's unfortunate. This is the sad thing. Of all those guys, only one left standing is Cornette. You know, it's just sad. You watch some of these 96 WWF matches, you know, the In Your House with the fucking tag team match, and Yoko and Owen and Davey Boy against, you know, Shawn and Diesel, and they're all deceased. They're all gone. Ultimate Warrior's gone. What happened to our heroes? We have to be our own heroes now. We have to be our own men. Anyway, so that's it. I've tried my best. I tried to do this video the other night. I got snake bit. I couldn't get the good lighting. I couldn't get it going. I'm making this on the very calendar date of his death. I believe, I could be wrong, that Owen was born on May 7th. Today's May 23rd. That makes the month of May Owen Hart month. And it's once again, kind of like Brody Lee or Eddie Guerrero. There are certain, because look, wrestlers die all the time. We're used to this by now, right? Ultimate Warrior might be one of them. There are certain guys that pass away and we never get over it. We never stop thinking about it. We never stop talking about it. You never stop, you don't see guys stop tweeting about it or Facebook posting. And it's certain guys, Benoit, yes, for whatever reason. But on the other note, Bruiser Brody, of course, but Owen, and possibly because of how he died, but I think because of how much he was well received and how much he was loved by the wrestling fans and his fellow wrestlers. And so, it's a brutal irony that he passed away in that fucking blue blazer outfit. I don't like that. I don't like how he died, and that's why it's so hard to talk about Owen Hart. But I'm glad I did. I guess I have more to say about Owen Hart, but that's enough for now. Owen, here's to you. I salute you. And subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. More pro wrestling tributes. Ox Baker, one of the boys. New Jack tribute. Other wrestler tributes. Mike Messier.